Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Today's topic is one that's been going around quite frequently here in the Final Fantasy XIV community, and it sparked quite some debate, as well as, I suppose you could say, a small uproar. Now, what I mean by that is that it's something pertaining to what producer of Final Fantasy XIV, Naoki Yoshida, had stated in a past interview, which was done by Famitsu. Now, in this interview, Yoshi P was asked this question: will Final Fantasy XIV ever become free to play? To which he answered as the following. Now he says, currently we are not considering this, as our current subscription model has been doing very well. Therefore, we don't see it as a necessity. However, now this is the big key part here, if 80% of the community, that being the player base of players like you and me, demand that the game become free to play, then he will consider this an option for the future, and we'll discuss it with Square Enix executives as well as his own team to decide whether or not this would be the right direction to put the game in. Now, just the very mention of the game becoming free to play has kind of put a lot of people on the edge, you could say, and worried a lot of others. So, with that in mind, let's discuss the finer details here. So, basically, what we get from this interview is that they're not immediately considering that putting Final Fantasy XIV as a free-to-play model. Like, as I read out to you, specifically in an interview, and of course I will include a link in the description of the interview if you wish to go view it for yourself, and that being basically he's saying they are successful right now with the current model, and they have no plans to go free to play anytime soon. But, this is the big part here, but if the players, 80% to be exact, which is a big chunk of the community, if they decide that they don't want to have to pay a sub every month anymore, then they will definitely consider placing this game as a free-to-play MMO. So, with that in mind, you can rest assured that the game isn't going anywhere anytime soon to free-to-play, and it's staying as it is for quite some time. But people always have that insecurity or that fear that Yoshida's words are kind of a wordplay, like some producers of big games do. They kind of dice words to kind of hide the truer meaning so that the player base, doesn't, get extremely upset which a lot of players kind of did get upset. But rest assured that this interview in no means meant that the game is for sure going free to play anytime soon. So you can put your fears, your insecurities to rest for now. All that really is saying is that if the game is beginning to, lack subs, like if the subs were to drop basically be below a certain percentage, like Yoshida's kind of suggesting here, that would be the 80% of the community. So if that big chunk of people stop subbing or they unsubbed, then they would consider marketing the game as free to play. Now let's discuss here basically what that would mean for the Final Fantasy XIV if it were, not if it is, but if it were to become free to play. So, when people think of free to play, they think, oh, yes, that means that people will be able to log in and play for as long as they want, and not have to worry about having to pay any fees or anything like that, just to play and enjoy the game. And with most free-to-play games, that is generally the case. You get all the basic features included in the base game, which in Final Fantasy XIV, this would be things like, say, retainers, free companies, link shells, housing and chocobos, etc. Stuff like that. That's just kind of basic and quality of life, so that stuff would be included with free-to-play. But here's the downside, the landslide of it, and that's basically that if this model were to take effect, then a lot of the extra features would be locked behind a paywall, which you would have to pay in order to have access to. So these would be things like extra inventory space, extra retainers, an extra job, or even extra story content, such as, for example, the side story Hildebrand, for example. That would probably be something that they start to charge you to get access to, so it's definitely not something fun to think about, having to be locked behind this big giant paywall just to get access to certain types of content, such as Hildebrand, or even say they start locking content like Diadem, extra things like that. If they start locking those, even say even the extreme raids, for example, the hardcore content, they would most likely start locking that, along with stuff like Hildebrand, behind a paywall, which you would have to pay in order to gain access to. And like I said, again, this would definitely not be any fun for anyone, because basically you'd only have so few things to do, and that would just be the normals mode of primals, or just the main story quest, which that would always be free, because this is a Final Fantasy title, and their major selling point has always been an engaging, enriching story with characters involved. So that portion would always be free. So, I mean, if that's really all you play for is just story and maybe just casual play to hang out with friends and such, then that is okay. Maybe that would be your preferred style, but a lot of the community here is pretty vocal about free to play, so. And we'll get to that in a little bit here, but anyway, free to play with Final Fantasy XIV would be kind of catastrophic overall for the community. And a lot of loyal fans may kind of start to drift off to other franchises or other titles. And a lot of this has to factor in with that they have to pay to get exclusive content. And not a lot of people enjoy that, especially in MMO where you're required to pay a monthly subscription. Then that definitely really hurts, hurts the player base who do pay a sub and like the content that they're getting for paying the sub. Also, what this would mean is that the development and cycle in which content would be churned out would definitely drop drastically, and instead of every 2 to 3 months, we wouldn't see a patch for maybe like 5 or 6 or sometimes maybe even 7 months, because they would have to earn the income from the cash shop, the Mog Station, from these small transactions just to be able to afford, putting in some new content as well as keeping the servers in mint condition and staying afloat. So with that, there would be more costs to essentially keep the game up and going, and as well as producing newer content. So that would definitely be another factor that brings the game down even further. But one major factor which makes companies decide to go free to play is because the community has shrunken so low that it's hard for them to want to invest more into the game because they're not raking in any income from it. So therefore, the decision to make a game free to play kind of bolsters their sales in a way, because it makes more people pick up the game, so they're getting a little bit of revenue from sales. Worldwide, this is a game that is played and enjoyed by all over the world and not just in a single country or nation. So the money they would get from sales would definitely last them probably about a year, maybe less, maybe longer, just depending on how popular the game becomes with a free-to-play model based. And so with that, a lot of the companies advertising free-to-play, kind of like I said, they have to acquire funds regularly in order to keep the game up and running, and as well as afford the server cost, which is where the microtransactions would be in. And these things, like I said, they would be stuff like exclusive content, getting access to that, or getting a new playable job. That would also be something that you would have to purchase rather than unlocking normally like we currently do. And as well as, all the stuff that we already have on Mug Station would still be there as well, like, extra outfits, jump jump potions that boost your level. All that would still be there. But again, they would start locking exclusive content behind a paywall, which would definitely not sit well with most players who've played the game for a long time. Now, I can imagine they wouldn't solely just make it so that the content here is locked completely behind the paywall. Like, I would think they'll probably offer, for those of us who've supported the game through the subscription model, they would probably offer us a discounted premium membership. And what that would include basically is that this premium membership, which would be basically similar to a subscription that you would have to renew like every so often. Like, say the premium lasts you up to 5 months or 4 months, something to that extent, and then you would have to renew the premium. Now, what this premium membership would basically do is give you access to all the exclusive content that they push out, as well as the new jobs. But again, because the free-to-play model would make it so that they have to have higher costs just to maintain the server and content, then this premium would most likely be much, much more expensive than the subs that we currently pay a month. It could be anywhere from $50 to even $100 just to get a premium membership and not have to be stuck behind that gigantic paywall just to get access to exclusive content and, expansions, especially being locked completely behind this paywall. So there is that to keep in mind, is that though the subscription model would be cancelled, there would most likely be taking its place would be a type of premium membership or account, to which will give you access to everything, for a certain length of time before you're required to basically renew that premium. So if that's something that would ease your thoughts if free-to-play ever comes, then definitely might want to bring that up with the dev team if they ever announce a free-to-play model, to have sort of a premium membership which you can pay just like if you were to pay a sub and get access to, the exclusive stuff and new jobs, etc. Okay, so now we come to the community's thoughts and opinions on the free-to-play versus the subscription model type. Now, basically, there's a huge amount that are very vocal, very against free-to-play, and they say a lot of things like, oh, if this game ever were to be free-to-play, then I'm going to unsub immediately and never come back. Those are the more radical and extreme opinions on the matter. Others have just say, hey, if this game comes free to play, then there's certain conditions that I want met in order to, stay subbed, and that would be like access to have regularly churned out content, You know, like, say, have something new every other month or so, which might be, again, that might be a little unreasonable, given that they'd have to procure enough funds to actually do that through the various microtransactions through the mod station. And then there's also others who've said, free to play, I don't want that. It will bring in garbage players and they'll just make the game really awful to play and they won't listen and everything else, you know, just being a little over the top and a bit dramatic. But I can understand where they're coming from when you're very passionate about a game that is currently great as is, and then to have it kind of turned upside down would kind of really ruin the, you know, the enjoyment which you gain from the game itself, and, you know, just being in the community. And so there's that, and then there's others who are kind of shaming the dev team, and Naoki Yoshida saying, you know, some pretty nasty things about them, even considering turning free to play. But you guys have to remember, it wouldn't be solely their decision. As Naoki Yoshida stated, it would be solely based on the community's decision, not just their own. So if the community decides, you know, like, a game is just not worth it as a subscription, then the dev team will definitely start discussing a different kind of model, whether that be free to play or lowering the cost on the subscription to kind of, you know, rake in more players, more subscribers to keep playing their game. So it's not as if they are wholly for the idea themselves, but again, they are only placing it as an option in the event that, you know, the community decides that they're not going to keep subbing anymore. And like I said, percentage-wise, if a percentage of subscribers drops way below what the average would currently be, then they will begin a discussion with Square Enix on where to proceed from there. Now there's the other portion of this argument, which is a very small minority. It's not very big compared to the ones who are up in arms with pitchforks and torches raised to kind of raid, you know, Square Enix. This small minority considers that free-to-play might not be such a bad thing at all. That it wouldn't really change things too drastically, and that, you know, we would still get somewhat the same amount of content that we get now, and like there would be more people coming in, so the communities would be bigger, a lot larger, and, you know, they would be buying more stuff from the mod station. And, you know, this is a big thing. I'll tell you now, it's true. It's very true. A lot of people will maybe try to hide or deny this, but the biggest thing that sells from the mod station currently would be Fantasias. And that's basically a potion which allows you to change the looks and or race / gender of your current character, or characters if you have many characters. This potion has been very successful and probably raked in a good portion of the revenue from their sales to the game. So, crazy, huh? One little item that's very popular brings in so much money to the company, to the game itself. Now, see that, just imagine that happening with if we were to go free to play. They're offering more items like Fantasia that would give you, special features or special in-game items, etc. And in one particular video I've seen, they also mentioned the thought of like a sort of gift box item, which would basically give you, some high tier weapons and gear, etc. So that you could, go raiding with your groups or with your friends, etc. Such a thing like that would probably be in high demand there. Others would be like additional costumes, like kind of like the Ystrola and Thancred outfits we were given. Those are also in high demand from the players, for them to, be able to dress up as their favorite character. So there's also that, and not to mention, there's a lot of crossovers that people have been demanding as well from other video game franchises that are maybe Final Fantasy related or tied to Square Enix in some way. Like I've heard some people say they want Nier cosplay or Final Fantasy 15 cosplay in the game, so such things like those would probably profit Square Enix and Final Fantasy 14 quite a bit. And again, this is the side of the argument that is for the free-to-play model if it should ever take effect. But again, a large portion of the community, the majority, are very stern and stand steady to revolt this idea of free-to-play. Now, and you'll probably ask, which side am I on in this case? For right now, I think the subscription is fine as is. Like Yoshida said, it is still going pretty strong and keeping up pretty well. They're keeping their subs, maybe not having them as active subs, but they still have the subs being brought and paid for. So, and even those who have unsubbed, they've come back and resub when the game is a lot more livelier and there's more content to do and try out. So this they've recorded in their data logs for, kind of like a future reference. And a lot of times even Yoshida himself has said that he wants the community, the players, to be able to have a sort of break in between the patch cycles, to kind of do all the new stuff while it's open and then take just a little bit of a break after they're burned out, from doing everything that they've done, such as farming things for higher gear and or mounts. But even then, there's a lot of players like myself who log in almost every day Sometimes it's every other day or every 2 days or, twice a week, 3 times a week, once a week. There's players like me, like that, who, they log in every now and then, just kind of a casual style of play. And we know that there's been down times where nobody's around because they're on long hiatus, taking a break and waiting for newer and better exciting things to come. Just like Yoshida said he wanted. So we as the active subscribers, the active players, we understand this. And we know that there will be more things to come, but at the same time, we do wish, that there were more things to be engaging to do, things that we can do on a daily or regular basis. So we've always been asking the development team, hey, can you add something like Palace of the Dead, keep us busy for a while, or things that are like PvP, things that we can log in and be excited to do every day. And even stuff like, there's the daily beast tribes, daily things. So we've been asking for a lot of those, and the dev team is definitely trying their best to work on bringing us stuff like that so that we can, stay somewhat happy. Maybe not, some of us are not happy as things are, but even then, we can understand that the dev team has to have their time to work on it, and even if that means, sacrificing, subs in order to make it happen, or having, sacrificing active communities in order to bring us some more things to bring back those communities with the newer content. So it's kind of all this big tug and pull sort of ordeal, you could say. The community is the side that's pulling, and then the dev team is the side that kind of tugs you back into the game once they're able to release the newer content. However, there is some issue with that, is that the dev team needs to have more tug each time they produce the new content. Otherwise, the pull from the players is going to be a lot greater, and that is what will push the game more towards, a free-to-play or free-to-play type of business model for the game. So again, I would encourage you, have some faith still in the development team of Final Fantasy XIV. They are doing their best and working hard to kind of make the game a lot better, adding some minor additions each small patch, and then adding more bigger additions with the bigger patches, such as more raids, more dungeons, more content to grind out on a daily or weekly basis. So they are definitely working hard on those types of things. And the fact that they are very communicative with the community here shows you that they do care about our subscriptions and that they do want us to keep playing their game. If they really did not care about us, about their player base, then they wouldn't listen to the feedback we provide on the forums. They would just go off and do what they feel is right for the game, completely ignoring us. And they wouldn't do live letters like Naoki Yoshida currently does, and they wouldn't go out into conventions and places such as that, do big events like that. They would not do these things if they did not care about their community. And that's the hard-hitting point and the fact of this argument, is that the development strongly cares for the community here, and they would not be doing all these things they're doing to communicate with us if they did not care what our thoughts and opinions were. And with that, we'll leave the argument to rest there. Thank you for watching this video, and if you'd like to express an opinion down below in the comments, then please feel free, but please try not to get into too many heated debates or arguments. I mean, come on guys, it's just a game that we all enjoy, but there's no need to get upset. As I said before, the development team does care, and they do not plan to make the game free to play anytime soon. Also, if you enjoy the content I make on this channel, then please feel free to subscribe or like the video. And again, I will include a link below of the interview between Yoshida and Famitsu about free-to-play model. That will be in the description. And once again, Amadeus Seon here, out, and thank you very much for watching.